Our next speaker is Mr. Heikki Waris. Heikki is CEO and co-founder of Coreorient and Piggybaggy. Piggybaggy is a social delivery service where local community members help each other in transporting everyday items such as grocery or online parcels. Heikki and his team worked on MoTiV app requirements and did case study on value of travel time in crowdsourced micro tasks in 4 MoTiV campaign countries: Finland, Slovakia, Portugal, and Spain. Besides, Heikki and his team was also managing the Finnish data collection campaign. Today, Heikki will give a presentation on implication of change, definition of value of travel time for stakeholders, lessons learned from Finnish stakeholder. So Heikki, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I hope that I will be able to elaborate and complement all of the previous great presentations to see the stakeholder angle to the value of travel time. Some quick statistics from Finland. First of all, because we are actually a micro company, we didn't have any channels of our own to execute the campaign. So that's why we basically had to do all of this work together with the stakeholders. So engaging people into the campaigns. And we did this by approaching lots of different types of stakeholders. So the most active ones were eventually cities and municipalities. So first of all, in the beginning, we approached in the pilot phase 2 large cities with specific departments that wanted to use the MoTiV worthy application for some of their data needs. The application was unfortunately not of good enough quality for them. So later we approached 60 different municipalities who were primarily interested in sustainability, and out of those, about half we actually got into the campaigns. Then also universities and schools, pretty good success rate there as well. Again, it was mostly individual researchers and staff members who were interested in sustainability that basically introduced our campaign in their research and education institutions. A few national and local associations. The Bicycle Association in Helsinki capital region, the Farmers Association, and then also Elderly People's Association. This was a little bit mixed success rate. Then public institutions and projects such as transport authorities, the Ministry of Transport and its agencies, various projects that are evolving mobility. We had lots of discussions with them, but eventually none of them participated in the campaigns. With companies, we had been involved with a couple of them, but eventually we judged that the same application quality was not sufficient to do the campaigns with them. Then in addition, we approached different user groups over social media and got participation by a few local and national level. So eventually we got quite okay statistics, and this 70% female participation is probably explained by the fact that this was really altruistic from the participants, as stated by Joao earlier. So we had no ideological employment, membership, or any other relation with the users who participated. So it was just altruistic and socially driven, and this for some reason seems to be very like female dominated channel in Finland. Okay, lessons from this recruitment of the stakeholders. First of all, the challenge is that they don't want to spend any money for anything that they are not already doing, and any time of the staff members in municipalities or any other organizations either. So this always trumps any potential benefits that the research could produce. The other thing is that for these mobility organization experts, they already have their data collection methods that are exactly customized for their data needs. So this doesn't fit into their processes. However, for completely new data customers, there is an opportunity of getting very interesting data, and this is what was interesting from the stakeholders' point of view. And then, of course, all of the stakeholders are extremely pragmatic because of the resource challenges that they have. So whatever we propose must be of very good user experience. That is more important than any type of value of travel time improvement potential. Then the opportunities. So a very big opportunity because these organizations, stakeholders that participated, did not have any solid way of collecting any of the data. So they were very interested about this. Then also they were very interested in figuring out how the current publicly driven mobility solutions like travel chains, including public transport as well as the public transport itself, when measured for anything else than the travel experience inside the vehicle, is related. So there is no data for those. And then, of course, very important is that stakeholders, they still have individual people in there, and they did have personal interests. For example, just that, well, it would be very interesting to see how I am moving. And then this I can explain also to others in my organizations and through our channels. Then when the campaigns were running, there were a few more lessons. First of all, the value of travel time concepts are, I mean, they are very solid research basis for them, but they are, well, too much theoretical for the actual end users. So they must be simplified because all of the stakeholders must recruit users in a very crowded information environment. So there has to be very focused small message that people can pick up from a Facebook post or from a newsletter or from an email. So the value of travel time ideas must be sold in a way or marketed as practical examples. So for example, get to know how active you actually are during the day. So there is nothing that refers to any specific research topics or vocabulary terminology. And then this is actually quite difficult even from this point onwards, because eventually we still don't know what exactly the individual users wanted from the app. We have some data, but we don't know what motivated them the most in using the application. Then in terms of the stakeholders, so because they were engaging in a very limited resources through the campaigns, so from their perspective, the value of travel time related results would be a surprise at the end because they didn't follow the campaigns and we didn't manage to provide them with any value of travel time related statistics or any other data during the campaigns. So what they anyway need is some data, basic data needed for progress tracking and ensuring that they can engage people through their channels. And then after that, when they start the campaign, then they are very low cost, low resource, opportunistic campaigns. So they just don't pay attention to that. So they just want this to be done among all of the other projects that and regular business as usual work that they are doing. So the value of travel time is not in their minds, except in the very beginning and at the end. Then when we look at the results, so the challenges with the results was that, first of all, there were quite low user volumes for each individual stakeholders. So we are talking about maybe 30-40 active users per municipality on average. So from that amount of data, it is difficult to make any clustering analysis, as was just shown to you, that would be relevant in that local area for that specific stakeholder. And from their perspective, this amount of data, they could even collect by just doing some interviews on the street. So that is a challenge. The other challenge is that since the project did not eventually have the resources to do individual value of travel time reports for each stakeholder, they do not really get much value from an aggregate report, even if it is like for the whole nation. So that is a challenge. And then eventually we have the corona, which was the biggest challenge eventually, that even the results that we did have were of no interest really at that point, because when we would have had them, then everybody was focused on, well, what do we do in this corona situation? But the opportunities are still there. So first of all, there are multiple cities in Finland that are already sourcing mobility data to enrich their existing data for planning purposes. Then there is another opportunity that outside of these, let's say, big cities and transport authorities, there are lots of municipalities, so smaller towns and cities where they would like to have the data, but they don't for any data, mobility data, but even more so if the data is relevant for them. And this is what the MoTiV project could actually produce. And of course, there is long-term potential if this whole project implementations and models of how it is done is actually developed into ongoing activity that does not require this active engagement by the staff of these municipalities and cities and stakeholders. That is somehow just running there and producing data for them. And then if we look at the implications of the value of travel time then to the stakeholders. First of all, to summarize, the value of travel time concepts make sense, but they are not for these mobility organizations experts, because they have already their own specific data needs that are customized for what they do, and the extra effort of doing it this way is not feasible for them. However, there is widespread interest for very versatile data, and this is actually, based on all of my discussions with them, it's actually a very good time to do it, because the whole mobility domain is anyway undergoing a very rapid change. So whatever earlier statistics they are collecting and doing designs, they are very aware that they need more information to react to the changing environment anyway. And producing value of travel time related information at this time and changing the perspective towards mobility, this is a good time to do it. However, it's important that the results must be relevant to each specific stakeholder, so that they add value even if they are just basic statistics data. And that always counts more than theory. So they want to have the low cost and opportunistic value out of the project. So in conclusion, the idea is very good, but then the challenge is how to make it easy for everyone, so that the value of travel time could be introduced in a wider scale. And here, what is really needed is that the collection of the VTT data must be integrated into other applications and other processes, so that the information is produced in the background, so it wouldn't require the investment of resources from the stakeholder organizations. The other thing is that even just the user interaction with the application itself could reveal what is important to them, without requiring this extremely intensive interaction, answering multiple questions for each trip every day. And then, of course, the question is that, will this be done eventually by Google or somebody else? As with, for example, corona tracking, so if it comes as a side effect of what tracking is already done by Google, then it just so much easier for the stakeholder organizations than having a dedicated system, even if it would be much more better from a privacy perspective and all sorts of policy goals. And eventually, the value of travel time really starts to matter from the point of view of the stakeholders when it is no longer research, but ongoing business activity, especially if it comes as a side product of something else. Thank you. Do we have any time for questions?